Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel, and the rain has finally just about stopped here in Madeira Beach, Florida, in the Tampa area. We had Tropical Storm Colin, C-O-L-I-N, sweep through here the last couple days, and it was windy. Rain just coming down. I took a couple videos of it and put it up on my Facebook page. You can go to my page and find that. I always tell you I'm on Facebook. And I had to park my car sideways to keep it out of the water that was the water level that was going up in the street out in front of my place. I would say that the water got to be about not quite a foot deep, but close. And then when the cars go by, it creates a wake that pushes the water up onto the sidewalk and up into the parking places. So I parked my car sideways, and so the water wouldn't get onto the brakes of the car, and my car wouldn't be sitting in water. And the funny thing about all of this is probably the hilarious part. The electricity never went off, never lost my internet, nothing. Now, on your average beautiful day during the summer or during any time the rest of the year, the power goes off probably once a week. But during a tropical storm with 50-mile-per-hour winds, nope, steady as can be. Go figure that. Go figure that. This was not as bad as the tropical storm that I lived through about 4 years ago, June of 2012, Tropical Storm Debbie, which was much larger, had a more concentrated, more defined eye to it. Was not a hurricane. The winds did not get that high, but it was windy. Don't get me wrong, it was windy, but it was much slower moving. So it just kind of hung around the Tampa area for 3 days and didn't even move that much. Whereas Colin was moving pretty fast. It was moving like a regular storm, and that's why didn't quite do the water damage that storm from 4 years ago did. It's just weird. It's one of those things. You live in Florida, you got to get used to it. And it should be known that Tampa has never been hit by a hurricane. In fact, it's like the only major Florida city that's never been hit directly by a hurricane. Tallahassee, even Orlando, when hurricanes come in from the Atlantic, from the east side of Florida, of course, Miami and these other cities have been hit. Tampa just kind of avoided it. Tropical storms have just put down a lot of rain, but we've avoided one of those storms with 100-mile-per-hour winds and that lasts, that's just way, horrible damage. One came close a while ago, but did not hit Tampa directly. So it's interesting. It's interesting, but it's just a regular overcast, sprinkly day out there. So, but never lost electricity once. Just hilarious to me. So let's get to the show. I want to talk. I was going to start with something else, but I ended up listening to the show that Andrew Klavan, the writer, does, political show that he does. I ended up listening to it not long before I did this show and kind of switched gears on what I wanted to say first. So I want to start with these riots that continue to happen at these Trump events. And I think Andrew, if you follow his show, if you listen to his show, he does a very nice job with it. And Tammy Bruce, who I'm a fan of, I don't mention her much for whatever reason, but I am a fan of Tammy Bruce's. And she has a really good article in the Washington Times about these riots that happened specifically last Thursday in San Jose, coincidentally, where the Pittsburgh Penguins were playing the San Jose Sharks, and it seemed the Penguins are now one win away from the Stanley Cup. Imagine that. But Trump was out there, and these people showed up, and there was the throwing of eggs, and there was fighting, and there was a reporter there, and documenting all this and getting this all on tape. And it is a little bit shocking. And Tammy Bruce, in her article in the Washington Times, talks about this and mentions that a lot of this, what you see there, is astroturfed. A lot of those people who you see in somewhat Donald Trump's defense are paid to be there. They are paid mobs. They're paid to show up, cause trouble. The signs that they carry are printed for them. They're told what to say, and then they pick up a check afterwards. I guess it's good, big business. I guess that's the Obama economy. You can't get a real job. You just become paid to go and riot. And that is all. Those are all excellent points. That really they would have you believe that Democrats would have you believe, well, the reason these people are showing up is because they're so ticked off about what Donald Trump is saying and how he's been talking about violence. And the truth is he has, and I want to get to that in a point. But this is not something naturally that's happening. Okay? It's not. That's the first thing we have to establish. That what you're seeing there is not natural. If those people weren't getting paid, I'm not saying that nobody would be there protesting, and I'm not saying there would be no violence. It would just be less. However, the more I think about it, let's think about it this way. Did anything like this happen at any John McCain events in 2008? I'm sure there were protests, but I don't remember there being much violence. With Mitt Romney in 2012, I'm sure there were protests everywhere he went, probably by paid people. But I don't remember any violence there either. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it surely wasn't as prevalent as we've seen this election season, specifically with Donald Trump and wherever he goes. Likewise, in this 2016 election season, when there were other people still running on the Republican side, did any of them encounter violence like Donald Trump's people did, and Donald Trump supporters did? No. Why do you think that is? See, I made the point a while ago, and this, you can include this whether you believe that these groups are astroturfed, or I don't know how you break it down to. When I look at these riots, I know that they're astroturfed, but I don't, on the other hand, believe that every person that's there is getting paid. I think that there's a combination of both. Because I know that there would be people naturally showing up if there weren't any people getting paid to show up. There would still be people there protesting what Donald Trump is and what he says and what he's doing and what he wants to do, if you believe it. The reason you only see this at Donald Trump's events is because, and I made this point a few months ago, is that Donald Trump speaks the liberal language. I think when I first talked about this a few months ago, maybe several months ago now, maybe the beginning of this year, that there's a saying in the pickup community. Remember a couple weeks ago I talked about the pickup community and compared it to the alt-right movement that's been going on. In the pickup community of men who try to learn all these techniques to meet women and get them into bed, there is a saying that game knows game. Meaning, if a bunch of guys are in a room just BSing and the women come into the room, instantly a guy is going to instantly recognize another guy who is good with women. Game knows game. Whereas the guys who are just a little bit clueless about women, they're not going to be able to totally understand why one particular guy or a couple particular guys are better with women and these other guys aren't. But game knows game. It can identify it. That's what's going on here with Donald Trump and these groups that protest him, these groups that throw eggs at his supporters. They recognize that Donald Trump speaks their language of violence. As I like to remind all of you, most crimes in the United States are committed by liberals. That is not a coincidence. That is something that is inherent to that ideology. You go into the jails in this country, you're going to find mostly liberals. You're not going to find anybody in there who's reading The Road to Serfdom. But I'm sure one or two of them could tell you a little bit about Karl Marx. I'm sure at least a few of them could tell you about gender identity and racial politics and social justice and things and economic justice. I'm sure a few of them could tell you about how rich people have too much. Right? We know that. And Donald Trump, the way he acts and the way he speaks to his supporters has brought this on. Once again, how do I know? Because I know that none of the other candidates, Republican candidates, in recent memory have had to deal with any of this. And I think that, and you know me as a never Trump person, but for all you conservatives out there, you have who are thinking about supporting him, just to remember, you're wading into this knowing all of it. And if you're going to just automatically think that, well, they're just astroturf groups, that's really not how they feel. You're kidding yourselves. I know that partially it's astroturfed. But if you don't understand that it's also somewhat organic as well, because once again, these people didn't go to a Ted Cruz rally and throw eggs. They didn't go to a Marco Rubio rally, last year and do this. They only do it for Donald Trump. And you know what? He likes it. He likes this violence. He likes the show of all of this. He likes it. And you know what? They like it too. Liberals like it too. The people who shouldn't like it are we as conservatives who don't believe this is the way you actually conduct American politics. We realize that we have disagreements with the other side, but we also understand that nothing gets solved in this country with fists and throwing things at each other. So I would just like to add that into what Andrew Klavan has already said, and this article that Tammy Bruce, and I know Tammy Bruce has a show that I haven't listened to forever, but I'm sure she said it on her show too, but in this article that she wrote, that there's more to it than just people being paid. There's a bunch of people, liberals out there, who are violent, who have violent tendencies, who see Donald Trump, and it's a call to action. I think of the movie, the first Avengers movie, where, remember, the Tesseract and all of that. And Thor at one point says, you messing with this power shows that humans, the Earth, is ready for a higher level of war. Meaning aliens, the Chitauri, whatever their name was, headed by Loki. They see that the Earth has the Tesseract, and they say, oh, they're ready to fight now. That's what's going on here. Trump and his people, his cultists, have given the word out that they want to battle in the streets. I mean, what do you think all of this about harassing this judge is about? What do you think that's about? this judge in his Trump University case. And then they act all stunned when these people show up and start throwing stuff. I don't think, I'm still convinced that too many people, and not just your average conservative out there, but too many Trump cultists, they don't understand what they're getting into with this guy. They want to fight liberalism, but we know because liberals don't respect private property. They don't believe in it. And they have a penchant. We know that liberalism is just a mild form of socialism, which is a mild form of communism, which is a mild form of totalitarianism. It's all under the same thing, and violence is part of all of it. That for you conservatives and Trump cultists who are so bent on fighting these people, you better be ready. You better be ready for this. If you think that these people will just keep it between you and them, you're wrong. You're wrong. If they can be paid to go out and assault people at rallies, what's to stop them from being paid to go and find out where you live and torch your house? Huh? But once again, you're buying into the candidate who is exacerbating all of this. You are. He brings out something in them that goes beyond just words in fighting about elections and fighting over issues. If you think that you really want to get into something violent with liberals, you're wrong. You don't want to do it. That's what we're trying. That's what elections and things are supposed to be about. Donald Trump doesn't care about that. And moreover, he's not going to admit that it's he who has brought this on, kind of. Not totally, but kind of. I'm not saying he has to speak nice to them. I'm not saying he has to kiss their butts or anything like that. But when a prominent person who is now a politician gets out there and starts talking about cracking heads and everything, liberals sit up and say, finally, somebody that wants to violently fight with us. Remember that. And I know conservatives, well, I got my guns. Well, I know. And I have a gun too. That doesn't mean I want to use it. But they will come. They'll come for your children. They'll come for your house. They'll come for your car. They'll come for your job. And at some point, you'll wake up one day and say, what the heck did I do here? Did I really want to get into this? Instead of just keeping this within the realms of political issues, political policy. I'm not saying you asked for it, but maybe you kind of asked for it. And maybe that's, and that could be the difference between these conservatives like myself, these never Trump people like myself, and those conservatives who have decided to go along with Donald Trump. Maybe it is that violence part of it. Maybe it is that some of them want to have this final battle, but not a political battle, but actually a warfare battle with liberals out in the streets, hand-to-hand combat, block-to-block, trench warfare of some type, just to finish it all. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the difference. That over years and years of trying to placate them, maybe that's what they'd say, they've just gotten fed up with the words, and now they want to do something more. What was the, I don't know who said it, but isn't warfare politics by other means? Who said that? I'm not sure. Something like that. But this is going to be good for nobody. But Donald Trump has unleashed it. Once again, because they weren't doing this to any other candidates. If Ted Cruz had won the nomination, somehow had gone about getting as many votes and as many delegates as Donald Trump had gotten over the last since January, you wouldn't be seeing this. Because Ted Cruz, not to say they'd love Ted Cruz, they'd hate him too. But you wouldn't be seeing things like this. Even though Ted Cruz, policy-wise, would be much more dangerous to those liberals than Donald Trump could ever be. But because liberals love violence, once again, they love getting in the face of Trump supporters and Trump himself and throwing things at all of them. Them not realizing probably that in the end, Donald Trump probably has more common with them policy-wise than any of the other Republican candidates who won. But they also realize, I guess, that when the topic is violence, he also has the same attitude as they do. And in the end, I've tried to tell you, what makes Donald Trump so different from them? Because he says he wants to build a wall. You guys crack me up. He loves violence like they do. He thinks in a lot of different topics like they do. And you're going to defend this guy. All right. So I just wanted to add that to this discussion about these riots that are going on. And they're going to continue. They want to fight, and they found a willing partner. And too many conservatives have think that this is good for our country. It's ugly. We can beat them. Once again, one of my listeners, and I appreciate him on Twitter, brought this up, something that I said back in January about when you get angry, you get sloppy. And you'll notice since Donald Trump has no competitors anymore on the Republican side, you notice that his language and his behavior just in the last month since Ted Cruz dropped out, John Kasich dropped out, has gotten looser. His behavior has gotten looser. Have you noticed that? I told you. He's gotten sloppy. I'm not sure that he cares. And as I've tried to tell you, all of this anger is for nothing. You do not need to be angry at liberals to beat them. Donald Trump believes that to win, you have to be angry. There's no proof of that. No proof of that. But he loves the spectacle. He loves the idea that they're going to be supporters of his who want to go out and beat other people's heads. He loves it. And to convince yourself of anything else, you're only lying to yourself. Let's move on to something else. Looks like Hillary won this, is going to win the nominations. I predicted she would. Didn't think that there was going to be anything that was going to stand in her way. Yes, it took a lot longer than many people predicted. Bernie Sanders insists that he's not going away. That doesn't surprise me either. He's going to hold out, and I think he's hoping that he gets the vice presidential slot. If I were her, I'd give it to him. I would. If she wants to win the election, that's what she should do. If she wants to box him out and keep him as a senator from Vermont, and she picks Elizabeth Warren or somebody else, I think she's asking for trouble. Although I do believe that Bernie Sanders people will eventually coalesce around Hillary Clinton, but it'll surely happen a lot quicker and easier if she were to do that. I think he's just running to run right now. There's just no path to the nomination, just like Ted Cruz. When he decided to drop out decided that he couldn't win either, although given what is going on with Donald Trump, as I said earlier, about the way he's acting, it very well could be that we get to the end of July, whenever that convention is, the Republican National Convention, and a lot of those delegates who are supposed to vote for Donald Trump think this guy's nuts. Because we still got almost 2 months to that. What do you think's going to happen between now and then? I don't think we've seen anything yet regarding him. Whereas on the Democrat side, I don't see this going anywhere. I don't see Hillary getting indicted for email stuff. She's going to get a slap on the wrist. That's it. And I tried to tell you, Bernie Sanders supporters, months ago, from the first debate months ago, that was back in September or whatever. I told you, when I discovered that he didn't have the courage to attack her on her emails, I knew that he wasn't serious about running for president. I told you that way back then. He's going to try, but Bernie Sanders, socialist that he is, you know what? He likes some personal attention too, and that's what he's gotten. This has been his swan song in American politics, and maybe he'll get to continue that story a little longer if Hillary Clinton picks him as her running mate. Once again, which she should. Who's Trump going to pick? Obviously, he's not going to be Newt Gingrich. Obviously not. For all of you people who are hoping that. Sean Hannity, I read, was really hoping that was going to happen. That's not going to happen. And I told you, as much as I like Newt Gingrich, even though he's on Donald Trump's side now, Donald Trump is not going to pick somebody like Newt Gingrich because Newt Gingrich is about 10 times smarter than Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's ego can't stand that. No matter what their politics may be between the two of them, Donald Trump's not going to do that. He's not going to pick somebody who's going to go out and talk about the issues and sound better than Donald Trump does. So that kind of limits who Donald Trump can pick. Doesn't it? So there's that. But Hillary Clinton, she won it. I don't know if it was done fair and square. There's probably some illegal things going on out there, some vote fraud. But I think she was going to win it either way. And as soon as Bernie Sanders drops out, I'm going to predict this right now, as I've told you, when he drops out, whether she decides to say that I'm going to pick him, or she kind of intimates maybe she'll pick him for the vice president slot or not, whether she says that or not, her numbers are going to go up. And then we're going to get a true sign of where the presidential race stands between the Democrat nominee and the Republican nominee. And dare I say it, the Republican nominee is going to be way behind. Way behind. And the RNC is going to see that too. And they're going to say, do we really want to get a shellacking like Barry Goldwater got in 1964? At least back then it was based on principle. This shellacking in 2016 would be based on something else and not based on principle. Speaking of principle, and I only have a little bit before the break, so I have to continue this talk after the break. Ben Sasse, there's an article in the USA Today.com. I don't read newspapers anymore. I get all my news from the internet. There's an article at usatoday.com about Ben Sasse and the problems he has run into in Nebraska since he came out as being a never Trump person. In fact, of all politicians who currently hold office, Ben Sasse is the most prominent one who has jumped into the never Trump camp. There are others, but he is the most prominent one, mainly because he's a newer guy in Congress, younger guy, wrote that letter a few months ago about how no good Republican, no good conservative can get behind Donald Trump. Well, he's taken a lot of flack in his state of Nebraska, which is a little surprising considering that Nebraska is one of the most conservative states in the union. In fact, I think that Barack Obama in 2012 didn't win one county in that state. But he's having some problems. I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about a couple other things that I've noticed in relation to that story after the break. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
The voice of American conservatism. WRS Digital, Red State Talk Radio.
And we're back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I want to talk about Ben Sasse and the issues that he's having in Nebraska, but I want to kind of expound on that, extrapolate that out of a couple things that I've noticed. The article in usatoday.com talks about Ben Sasse and what he's done, his accomplishments, how he ended up winning the senator seat in Nebraska a few years ago. Now, just a couple years later, a lot of people, Republicans in that state, are mad at him of what he's been doing saying about Donald Trump. And in the article, they get some quotes from different alleged Republicans in that state who don't like what he's been doing, trying to undermine Donald Trump, who's going to be the nominee on the Republican side. And when I read this story, I thought of something that I noticed recently that I saw on my Twitter feed, or no, on my Facebook feed. I'm not going to tell you who the woman is. But it's somebody that I follow on Facebook. And this woman is a conservative. By any definition, she is a conservative. And she wrote in her Facebook feed, and I read it, that she was watching Fox News, and David French, the guy who's decided to now not run for as a third-party candidate. And you should also know this woman has been a Trump supporter for a long time that I know of since last year. Since early on, since Trump got involved in the campaign, in the nomination process. She wrote, David French is on Fox News. I have to turn this off. See, these are the kind of situations that conservatives get into when they embrace somebody who's not conservative. Suddenly, you start turning off the radio, the TV, your internet. You stop listening to a podcast because even though that person you're listening to, you agree with because they don't support the same candidate you do. That seems very strange to me. And as I emailed a friend of mine within the last 24 hours, that if we're going to get to the point where regular conservatives are turning off other conservatives, well-known conservatives, because those conservatives don't support Donald Trump, then we have become a house that is divided against itself, not to go Abraham Lincoln on everybody. But Donald Trump has managed to wrench away those people to the point where they don't even listen to fellow conservatives anymore. In fact, when they see one, they want to turn the television off. That's crazy. And this, to me, sounds like what is going on in Nebraska. I will have you know that for this article, and you can read it for yourself, and there's an article, I think, at Politico that details the same phenomenon. That these people who are now disgusted by Ben Sasse probably have much more in common with him than they do with Donald Trump. But Ben Sasse is the one who upsets them. This is how crazy this has all gotten. And it can't last like this. As other people before me, and I did not come up with this idea, But they noticed this at National Review a long time ago. They noticed this at RedState.com, the other Red State, a long time ago. That Donald Trump could be the undoing of conservatives and the conservative movement in the United States. And this, what I'm talking about with Ben Sasse, with David French, is a symbol of that. Of it starting, if it's not having been going on for a while now. Where people, good conservatives, start to reject conservatives who are actually out there in the Senate, writing for National Review, making conservative policy. They start to reject them because because these regular conservatives want to win so bad. And because they've convinced themselves that if Hillary Clinton becomes president, that'll even be worse. That somehow conservatism will collapse if Hillary Clinton becomes president. I don't know what they're thinking. I know that I've dished out some theories, and I've tried to put myself in their shoes, but I can't consistently stay in their shoes to think like they do. To try to examine how they think. It's all crazy. So we're to the point now where Ben Sasse, good conservative, a guy who I think that if he continues to be a senator, and if he were to run for president somewhere down the road, would run on a conservative platform, conservatives can't stand him anymore. Don't want to hear him, don't respect him, nothing. Same way with David French, even though I know most conservatives don't know who he is. Didn't know who he was until recently. Can't stand him, don't want to watch him, don't want to read anything that he's written, think that he's a bad guy, on and on and on. No, Donald Trump is the main guy. Now, some people like Newt Gingrich, others are trying to play both sides, and that maybe shouldn't be a surprise. They on one hand want to support Donald Trump, but then on the other, when Donald Trump says something stupid, they want to come out and criticize him. Well, that only makes them look stupid. Newt Gingrich looks just as stupid as these regular people who are supporting Donald Trump over Ben Sasse. They're all the same. They just don't know it. Although I'm sure in their minds, it all makes total perfect sense. But what I'm trying to avoid by being a never Trump guy and also a never Hillary guy is I want to make sure that conservatism doesn't become just anti-liberalism, anti-Democrat Partyism. I was thinking about that within the last couple days as well. Obviously, I'm seeing now that a lot of conservatives, they're kind of conservative, but really they just don't want to be seen as liberal. They just don't want to be seen as in part of the Democratic Party. They just don't want to let the Democrats win. If it's really not about principle, it's just not allowing the other side to win. And if that means we have to say and do anything to do that, then that's what it means. I don't think that winning is worth that. This is the exact reason that I have said that I'm not a fan of an independent run or a third-party run or anything. I think these people should get exactly what they want. Because it's what they deserve. And it's going to be chaos. And they're going to wake up one day and say, what the heck did I do? Just like Alec Guinness's character in Bridge Over the River Kwai. He sees that American has come back to destroy the bridge and suddenly looks at the bridge and says, my God, what have I done? He was so caught up in his own righteousness. You know, the funny thing is, all these Trump supporters say that we are the ones who are the self-righteous ones. We are the arrogance, us never Trump people, us goody two-shoes, us Boy Scouts, us moral warriors trying to attach character and morality, everything. When really, it's them. It's them and their egos that can't stand to lose. And there's no guarantee that Donald Trump's going to win anyway. I think he's going to get his butt kicked. It's really about that. They just don't want to lose to Hillary Clinton. As if that is a political principle, as if that is something that should guide the United States. It's only worth winning if you have the right ideas. It's not worth winning otherwise. They're the ones who are going to wake up. I'm not going to wake up if Hillary Clinton is president one day and say, wow, I should have voted for Donald Trump. I'm never going to think that. I'm never going to think that. Because I have to see them as being equal. It's they who do not. They do not see Donald Trump as being equal. In fact, they see Donald Trump as being like a million trillion, infinity times better. And in that, they've deluded themselves. Whereas I am under no delusions. It's going to stink either way. And so they're going to be the ones, I forget the guy's name, Alec Guinness's character in that movie, who are going to take a look back at the bridge. They're going to see that Japanese train going over it. They're going to say, oh my gosh, I think I helped the opposition. And then it'll be too late. Now, in the movie, the bridge does get blown up, but at considerable cost to brave men. And dare I say it, that's going to happen this time too. A lot of people are going to pay for all these conservatives who have gone over to support Donald Trump. It's inevitable. It just hasn't happened yet. It's one of those situations that I've talked about, being that I have this morbid fascination with plane crashes. And see, like, for example, on September 11th, videos that I still cannot watch to this day anymore. But once those videos go in your mind, you can't get rid of them. But seeing both those jets headed for those buildings, the first one and then the second one later, and thinking about the people who are in those jets, their hearts are beating, they're thinking, they're nervous, they have pulses, they're talking, they're maybe on their phones. By every definition, they are alive, but they are dead. Because they can't escape their fate, which is a couple seconds away. The plane, the jet hitting either of those buildings. They can't avoid it. There's no physical way to beam them out like Star Trek or anything else. They're dead, even though they're living. That's what's going on right now. Our country's some ways doing fine, some ways not doing so fine. But we are in a jet, and it is headed toward a building with either one of these people. And whether we hit it 600 miles an hour or 300 miles an hour, and I guess that's the way I'd portray it with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Either way, we're dead. The problem is the Trump people will try to convince you, well, would be flying at a slower speed and some of us might live. It's not going to happen. Everybody's going to be dead. Figuratively, not literally. The degree of which one of them is more liberal than the other, even though I see them as the same, does not matter. Each of them is flying at a speed that is going to get us killed. They are flying in the wrong direction. Doesn't matter if they're going the speed of light, the speed of sound, the speed of a Model T. We're all going to die. Figuratively, not literally. But there are people like Ben Sasse who see this and maybe see a way out of it, and the people say, nope, we don't want to do that. David French, nope, we don't want to do that. All these other good conservatives, the people at National Review, no, those people are wrong. Even though these people who are saying they're wrong have more in common with the people at National Review than they do with Donald Trump. It's so mind-boggling. And that's the reason, as I've heard on the Ricochet podcast and elsewhere and read elsewhere, about conservatives who've been friends with each other for years, and they're being divided up over this particular topic of Donald Trump. And I guess that's why there's those conspiracy theories out there that Donald Trump did this to cause this in the first place, as being a tool for the Hillary Clinton campaign. And for Bill Clinton, being that Donald Trump has been friends with them for 20-some years. But keep in mind, we as conservatives, we have allowed ourselves to be divided. Some people want to keep to their principles. Other people just care about winning. And this is what you get. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And we know what happened when Abraham Lincoln said that. The Civil War. Pretty ugly. And I guess that's what we're going to do here on the conservative side now. I guess that's what's going to happen. We're going to duke it out. Hopefully not actually with the throwing of eggs like liberals do. But we're just going to have to battle it out. And in the meantime, liberalism is going to march forward. I hope you all feel very good about that, all of you who have ditched your principles for an idiot. Let's move on to something else. I was listening, Ricochet.com, I saw this trailer for this movie coming out. It's called Can We Take a Joke? And it's all these comedians have gotten together. Gilbert Gottfried, Penn Jillette, Adam Carolla, several female comedians, unfortunately. Most of them I don't know. That's not a reflection on them. It's a reflection on me. I'm not much into stand-up comedians, I guess. But it's a documentary about how comedians, the perils that they have these days with social justice warriors and people who want to infringe on people's free speech. And it looks to me to be a very interesting documentary. Like I said, I've just seen the trailer. And within the trailer, there are videos of comedians actually being attacked. Real attacking of comedians that have happened because of what they say on stage. And I got thinking about it, and I was wondering, what do these people, these kids on campus at Yale and all Oberlin College, where the speech police run rampant and kids turn other kids in for saying certain things, what do these social justice warriors laugh about? Do they laugh? Do they smile? What do they find funny? That would be something that would be interesting to me. Now, they probably find conservatives funny. But even after a while, I think that would grow old. Making fun of National Review or Rush Limbaugh or anybody else over and over and over again, it would get a little old. It would be very interesting to me to have somebody go undercover to see how these people talk and how they act when the cameras aren't on them. I'm sure they're very, very foul people, but what would be interesting to me is, what do they find funny? I mean, not funny in a cruel way, but just things that amuse them about life. And as I got thinking about that, I don't know, I don't think I'm showing my age here, but I remember from Led Zeppelin, in one of their live concerts that was recorded, was it The Song Remains the Same or something like that from the 1970s, that Robert Plant, the lead singer, during one of the songs, was it Stairway to Heaven that it was going on? I forget. But he says something like, does anybody remember laughter? And I thought of that as well. And I never understood that. And I'm not even saying that Robert Plant was, predicting social justice warriors in the 21st century. But it is a kind of a weird statement to make. Does anybody remember laughter? Well, why would somebody say that? Because everybody laughs, everybody's kidding around, everybody loves jokes. And then we get into the 21st century, and then you can actually start wondering, I wonder if these social justice warriors remember laughter. I wonder. What do they find funny? Because sometimes, hey, we know how life is. Sometimes all you have is laughter. When your job's not going well, you're losing money, you have a death in the family, sometimes the only thing that gets you through the day is a good chuckle about something. And when you start detailing life like that, you start thinking about life in those terms, then you maybe understand why all these social justice warriors seem so angry. Maybe it's not necessarily about restricting speech or anything. Maybe they just haven't laughed in like 15 years. Maybe. Reader's Digest used to have a section in it. Does Reader's Digest even still exist? I have no idea. We used to get Reader's Digest at my house when I was growing up, so I read a lot of stories, read a lot of condensed versions of stories and everything. But they used to have a section in that book, magazine, whatever you want to call it, periodical, called Laughter is the Best Medicine. And I think that we're finally figuring out in the 21st century what that actually means. Is that the people who try to restrict laughter, restrict jokes, restrict the entertainment of people are truly the sick ones in our society. And of course, the problem with this, at least a little bit, and I know who Gilbert Gottfried is, I know who Penn Jillette is, I know who Adam Carolla is, and I know that Penn Jillette and Adam Carolla are no Barack Obama fans. Don't know about Gilbert Gottfried. I have no idea. And I don't know some of these other comedians. The problem is that many comedians who are in the business of making people laugh, and maybe even some of them who are going to appear in this documentary, probably when Barack Obama became president, they suddenly didn't do any presidential jokes. We know Saturday Night Live, that's what they did. They make fun of Barack Obama now, but when he first was president, that was territory that could not be touched. So a precursor to me believing in this documentary would be to make sure that all these comedians, when Barack Obama became president, they weren't afraid of making fun of him too. I mean, if you're going to make a documentary called Can We Take a Joke, then everything has to be included. Right? And I know maybe that rubs conservatives the long way. Are you saying that Mother Teresa can be joked about? Are you saying that the Pope can be joked about? And I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes. I'm not going to play the liberal game in all this and try to exclude people from being joked about. Now, if that's all you do, if that's all you can do as a comedian is make fun of Christians or Jews or something, then that's seems to me to be something else maybe. You might want to try to diversify, but that's just a taste thing, not a moral thing, not a principle, values thing. But my fear is I'm not so sure how many comedians really believe what is said in this, what I think is going to be said in this documentary. That's the problem. Too many have discovered that they can make money just staying away from that stuff and not drawing, and not crossing certain lines. And from that, when that happens, social justice warriors win. I want to maybe talk about this more tomorrow on a larger scale. But I got to go. EdwardDentzel.com is where you can find all of my old Red State Talk Radio shows. You can find them at Podbean, Podomatic, YouTube, and SoundCloud. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. Email me, edwarddentzel@reagan.com. You can tweet me, Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. You can download for free my next novel called The Comebacks at edwarddentzel.com/book. Check out my other show, America's Missing Podcast, with my co-host, Melissa Bridges. You've been listening to The Dentzel Domain at Red State Talk Radio. Good night.